Punters, how is it going? Now, before we jump into today's episode of CueBall's Bearded Rambles, I wanted to tell you about a brand new wrestling game that is free to download. It's on the Android App Store. Fortunately, it's not on the Apple App Store yet, but it will be coming out very soon. The game I am talking to you about is Indie Wrestler. Indie Wrestler is a tap-based text mobile game made by wrestling fans for the wrestling fans. The idea behind it is pretty simple. The guys behind Indie Wrestler wanted to give you the opportunity to create a character and to take them to the top of the wrestling world. How would you do that? I don't know. Well, I'm going to tell you, by getting yourself over. As a wrestler, you need to get yourself over with the crowd. You need to have great matches, cut promos, and win the titles. You get to train your wrestler, work for different promotions, upgrade your gear, and even react to online gossip, rumors, and innuendos. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, a Goldberg iceberg. It's truly a unique game that hasn't been developed for the wrestling scene before. The goal of the game is to make it to the biggest promotions in the game and become their world champion. And then test your long-term drawing power out to see how long you can stay on top for. Now, if this is something that you're interested in, on the description below and tell them the beer drinking, heavy metal listening, bald-headed brawler, CueBall sent you.
I tear the skin from the bone just to feel you.
How's it going? And welcome back to CueBall's Bearded Rambles. This is episode 47. So, my guest at this time, quick introduction, as I like to do. He's a former PCW UK Live Wrestling and AllStar Wrestling UK champion. He's well known for his appearances in TNA or Impact Wrestling or whatever you want to call it. He's a current head trainer at the AllStar Wrestling School and wrestling star of the brand new wrestling game, Indie Wrestler. Punters, I give you the one, the only, Dean Allmark.
Oh, what a builder! What a builder!
Yeah. And there's the pyrotechnics. We have pyrotechnics in this as well because power of YouTube and all that. So, how are you doing? How's life been throughout lockdown?
It's been. People always say this, and it's just like it's one of them. It's like people tend to ask you like, "Oh, when's your next wrestling show?" or "When does the wrestling start up again?" And a question that you do get asked is like, "How's life been in lockdown?" It's like one of them things now. And for me, like it's been a bit of a journey because obviously I've been a full-time wrestler for 20 years, and obviously with all this coming along and the wrestling stopping, it was kind of like, wow, like what do I do now? Like I'm always like looking forward to like the next show, the next event, like where am I going to be tomorrow? And then when that's suddenly taken away from me, it's kind of like, wow, this is a bit insane. So initially I dealt with it pretty badly because as the weather is right now, like this time last year, the weather started getting nice and I literally had nothing to do. So I just spent like every day pretty much getting drunk and just enjoying the weather and the beer, putting about 2 stone in weight. And yeah, it was a bit of a, like, I know it sounds like a good time, but for me, it was a bit of a dark time. So I was just like, wow, especially because like in the summer, I'm used to doing like 10 shows a week for like the entire summer, and when there was no shows whatsoever in the summer, it was my first summer season for 20 years without wrestling. It was a bit of a bitter pill to swallow. So yeah, it started really bad. And then towards the end of last year, just out of nowhere, really, I took up meditation and through my meditations, I went vegetarian from there. And it was like, wow, like just them 2 little things like made such a difference in my life. And the gyms opened again and started working out and just everything seemed to get a lot better. So I know we're in like lockdown number 3 now, but I don't feel as bad as I did like this time last year, because this time last year I was really struggling. But with all like just over the last couple of weeks, I've taken quite a few wrestling bookings on, and wrestling promotions have started posting like match graphics again and posters for the shows, and seeing my face on them again is just it's like seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, because like I said, it's been a journey now, and I'm finally on my way back to the life that I knew. But I feel like, as bad as it is, but I just feel like this had to happen, because I'm just going to go back to wrestling like with a different mindset now, and I feel like I'm a different person too. So everything happens for a reason, and I believe this happened for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad you come out of it, come out of everything, well, because it is a dark time for a lot of people, including myself. When it all happens, it never happens. What do you do in that situation? And it's just a case of trying to get through it. And I think this lockdown, like the third lockdown, everybody's just like, this is life now. This is how we got to deal with things. But with the wrestling show coming back now, like guys like me and you, it's exciting. It definitely is. And, I can't wait to get back. And obviously you can't wait to get back. So that's all good, brilliant. So should we get into the questions?
Yes.
Oh, Dean, everybody has a story. And I love hearing everybody's story. So Dean, for the dozens and dozens watching at home. Yeah, cheesy, I know. How and why did you start wrestling?
So again, like I'm sorry for that long answer to your first kind of like introduction, but it's kind of, again, it's a bit of a long story. As I feel like everything is when it's like something important that happens in your life. And for me, like I started watching wrestling when I was 6 years old with my granddad, and obviously growing up, I was into like the WWF, and then I found out that there was a guy that lived about 10 houses away from me that was like also in love with wrestling. And he was a year older than me. Sorry if you can hear my dogs in the background there.
All good, don't worry.
My kids are coming in, I think. So yeah, I found out that he was into wrestling. And I think we were about 10. And we used to go to each other's houses and like buy the pay-per-views and stuff like that. And what basically happened is like we used to go on holiday together with like his family, and we used to go to shows in like real at the Coliseum on real seafront, and we used to go to the Victoria Hall in Hanley and Stoke where we were born and raised, and yeah, just all the way through high school we were like wrestling on the field and stuff, and it's basically like we just live for wrestling. And then I left school at 15, and Rob, who was it ended up being Robbie Dynamite, with that year that he had when he left school, all he did all that year was join a gym and train. So as soon as like I left school at 15, I joined the same gym. And in this gym, it was a 3-story building. The gym was on the top floor. So after being at the gym for about a month, 2 months, we went to a local wrestling show. And they got on the microphone and basically said, "We're opening a wrestling school. This is where it's going to be." And it turned out to be in the same building on the 2nd floor. So we went to the gym that day, and then my friend lent me a $5. We went along and did the first opening weekend, and from there we never looked back. It was just from there on, like my life's just been wrestling.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough from the age of 16, like I had my first match in the January of 2000. And I've been wrestling full time ever since.
Nice. It's quite a good success story then, really.
I always tell people it's kind of like people like go looking for wrestling, but I like to say that wrestling came and found me, because literally I did nothing but apart from join the gym in the building where the wrestling school ended up coming. And yeah, my friend Robbie Dynamite always had it in his head, like in high school, that he was going to be a wrestler. That's all he ever wanted to be. And he was like, "I'm going to be a wrestler. I'm going to be a wrestler." And I was like, "Okay, Rob, whatever you say." And then, yeah, we both ended up becoming wrestlers, like full-time wrestlers. And obviously, we started in that wrestling school in Stoke when when I was 15 and he was 16. And up in like we traveled all over the UK. We went to TNA together in 2004, and then in 2017 we were in Japan together. So it was just
Nice.
He retired in 2017, like shortly after that trip to Japan. But yeah, it just kind of came full circle, and it was just like I remember we had a picture in Japan together with like Tokyo in the background, and it's like, wow, like look how far we've come. Anybody who's ever been to Stoke-on-Trent knows what a complete dump that place is. And there we are, like all expenses paid, trip to Japan, like living the dream. So yeah.
That's cool. Sorry, you just glitched out a little bit there. Sorry. No worries. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that sounds really cool. So do you remember your first match? Because I believe it was against someone called Chris Curtis, if that's correct.
Yeah, so Chris Curtis was the trainer at the wrestling school, and I don't really remember much of my first match because I always describe it as like when you start your wrestling career and your first like couple of years, it feels like you go in the ring and then 3 seconds later, like you're out.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, wow, that time went so fast. For me now, like after wrestling for 20 years, I go in the ring and it feels like I've been in there for 2 hours. Like everything's like it's slow-mo now.
Yeah.
But like when I first started, it was just, the match was just over so fast. Probably wrestled for about 10, 15 minutes. But honestly, I felt like I was in there for 3 seconds. And yeah, I don't remember much of it, to be honest. I ended up wrestling at that venue like every month. So I do remember the venue, but obviously at 16 years old, with it being like 20, 21 years ago now, it's a lot's happened since then. So yeah, I don't really remember that much about it, to be honest. But I remember that I got through it pretty unscathed. I came out and had like a big lump on my elbow, like a really big hematoma. So that's pretty much the only thing I can remember about it, to be honest.
So AllStar Wrestling, how did that come about in your life?
We were wrestling for the same company, and like I said, we were training like 3 hours on a Tuesday night. We were training 5 hours on a Sunday, and it was just like this room with like some blue judo sit in, and we were doing the shows, and there's probably like 100 to like 200 people in at the most, and we were doing this show like once a month. And by that time, like I just remember thinking to myself, well, Robbie was the one who was just like, oh, like we need to like get moving, because like Rob never considered in his entire life about getting like a job, and I was getting pressured a bit myself. So it was Rob was kind of like, we need to get in touch with Brian, and like he runs like pretty much every day, like all year round. So we need to get in touch with him. But Chris Curtis had this thing where he was like, if you wrestle for anybody else in Stoke, then you're done here. You know what I mean? So Robbie Dynamite and Kid Cool, myself and Mikey Whiplash somehow got like a tryout match with AllStar, which was before the show. And Brian was like, come down, I'll see what you can do. So we went in there, we did this little match. And at that time, like in 2000 or 2001, there wasn't very many like smaller, like speedy guys in the country. I think there was only like Johnny Storm and like Jody that were pretty much the only ones like doing anything like off the top rope or anything like that. So obviously you had like James Mason and like JC Ace and people like this. Frankie Sloan obviously does crossbody off the top, but nobody was really doing like all the stuff that we'd studied from like 90s, like Mexican wrestling, Japanese wrestling. And like when we got in there and started doing this sort of thing, I think Brian kind of saw that it was something different that he could add to his shows, because his shows at the time were like Skull Murphy. They were like the Barbarian, who used to be in WWF, PM News, the Avalanche. These were all like gigantic men over 18 stone, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
probably the smallest one was Skull, and he was a good 16 stone at least. So I think he saw a spot for us on the shows, and then pretty much after that, I kind of had this like sense of loyalty where I needed to stay with Chris, and Robbie Dynamite and Kid Cool. They decided to leave this company in Stoke and then go on for Brian. So I stayed for a couple of months, and then I ended up doing a charity show. I got offered a charity show in Stoke, and I did it under a mask. And it was I got asked by Keith, it was like also one of my trainers there, but he had a falling out with Chris. And as soon as like somebody grasped me up to Chris was like, "Oh, like I've got no choice but to fire you," kind of thing. And I was like, bloody hell, like I've been doing one show a month for like a year and a half. Like I'm devastated. And like literally the week after, I was on the camps for Brian Dixon wrestling like 7 days a week, every week. You know what I mean? So
it works in your favor.
So yeah, so that I just feel like at times in my life, I'm not one to quit something. You know what I mean? I'm not one to like, I'm quitting this promotion or anything like that. It takes like a bit of a push from somebody for me to actually go. So it kind of pushed me in the right direction, and then from there on, I was off. I was traveling the country, 16 years old, going out every night, sleeping on car journeys, just living the dream.
Nice. I think for anybody who starts wrestling, I think that is an ideal dream of theirs. You know, it was for me certainly back then. I never had that, but that was just because, you know, real life got in the way, unfortunately. But it is what it is, isn't it? So yeah, you've done your stuff with AllStar Wrestling. A couple of years later, you appeared on TNA Wrestling. So again, how did this come about?
So I'd been wrestling for AllStar for about 2 or 3 years maybe, and I'd just come back from an injury. I had a grade 4 ligament tear in my ankle, and it was literally my first show back in Chester. And what happened was, at the beginning of the show, Robbie Brookside came up to me and he was like, this guy called Dave Penz, who used to be a ring announcer on WCW, was working for TNA, and he got in touch with Brookside, who was really good friends with him. He was like, I need 4 guys to come over and do this thing called the America's X Cup. We're going to do like Team UK against like Team Mexico, Team AAA. So Brookside came up to me and he was like, I want you to be one of the 4 guys. And I was just like, wow, like I've just come back from injury. I think I was only like 19 at the time. After 4 years of like full-time wrestling, I didn't feel like I was ready enough for like, because as soon as you got out there, it was like pay-per-view. It was like thrown straight off the plane into the ring. So I took the show to think about it, and then one of the lads in the back kind of said like, if you don't do it, you probably end up regretting it, so just do it. And that trip actually turned out to be like the best experience in my wrestling career, because I got there, we literally, like, as soon as I said yes to Brookside, he was like, okay, that's cool. You need to be like in America by like 2 days time, and you need to fly from London. You need a connecting flight. So we got there straight off the plane, straight to the venue, straight into the ring. And my first match there was a singles match against S.A. Rios. He was obviously a big star in WWF, but by this time, I think he was injured at the time, and he was no longer WWF anymore. So we went in there and basically I shit the bed and had the worst match of my career at that point. And I came out the ring, went outside and cried, like sat against the wall and cried for like half an hour. And I was just absolutely devastated, because at that time in TNA, you had all the guys backstage, you had like Sabu, you had all the guys that had grown up watching in like WWE, WWF, WCW, ECW, had all these guys there. You had like Dave Taylor was our manager. Obviously, I'd flown over there with James Mason, Frankie Stallone, who I respect so much, and Robbie Dynamite, who's like my best friend and my big brother. And I just felt like I let everybody down. And yeah, just from that moment onwards, I just always promised myself that I was never going to have a match that bad ever again. And I had to wait another week until I got to wrestle again. I wrestled in a tag match, and the tag match was actually pretty good for what it was. Like, obviously, you got like the British wrestling style clashes a bit with the Mexican style, but it actually came together quite nice. And yeah, just I always bring this up to people because like a lot of people have bad experiences in wrestling, and I always and in life, and I always say like the best lessons that you can have in wrestling are bad lessons, like bad experiences, because they are the ones that you learn on. And yeah, just I came back from that trip and I was just like, man, like I need to get my shit together. And I've never had a match that bad ever since.
Learning curve, isn't it? You gotta live. You have to live and learn, and that's the only way you learn. Really, is through the mess ups, like you said.
That's it. And you see so many people in wrestling, they have like one bad experience and it just puts them off. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They just need to get back on the horse, as they say, and get back in there.
Yeah.
Because you can't let these bad experiences like ruin what could be a good career.
Yeah, definitely. Just got to rebuild, readapt. And, you got to, that'd be the reason why, it's good to film your matches. So if you do have a bad night, everybody does, you can watch back and think, shouldn't have done that, should be doing this at this point. And, like you said, just a full circle. That's what it comes down to. So, you're doing your AllStar Wrestling. You went to TNA, you wrestled there, and obviously you wrestle all around the UK as well. I've seen your name pop up for PCW, like I said in the intro. Oh God, loads and loads. So, if you had to say your favorite, if you could put into perspective of which promotion is your favorite, could you say which one is your favorite?
Wrestling company.
Yeah. Which one was your favorite, if you could? Or just as good in their own little way, kind of thing.
Thing is, like, AllStar has been like my life since I was like 16, and like there's just something different and special about like AllStar shows. Like the style's totally different. Like I find myself like wherever else I go in the country, I always switch my style up. I always have to switch my style up to please like the audience, to please the promoters. Whereas like AllStar is its own style, and that's the style I love. It's obviously you do your town shows, but you do the holiday camps where you're not wrestling in front of a wrestling audience. You'll be wrestling in front of like 2,000-3,000 like non-wrestling fans. They've never seen wrestling before. And the trick to that one and the goal is to go out there as a nobody and leave as a somebody and educate these people on what wrestling is. And every time you go out there, you've got to use your charisma, your showmanship, and you need to show them what wrestling is, but break it down so they can digest with them not being wrestling fans. So just in the summer, like I said before, doing 10 shows a week on the camps, it's so rewarding when you come out of a match on the camps where you just like won the crowd over, and you see it on the faces that they've never seen anything like this in their lives. It's so rewarding. It's but like I said, like from AllStar to Japan to the Indies, every show I do is pretty much different than the last one. So yeah, there's so many. Like I wouldn't say AllStar's my favorite. I'd just say it's different. But like every promotion that I work for is good in its own little way.
Yeah.
Or I wouldn't even work there. It's just I just enjoy wrestling everywhere and enjoy the challenge of switching my style up to what I need to do for that show.
Yeah, I love it. That's a really good answer. Very good answer. It's nice to talk to somebody who has so much passion for wrestling, even because when you wrestle, sometimes you can lose that. You watch on TV and you think, oh, I really want to do that, and then you wrestle for a couple of years yourself, and then it's like, oh, kind of bored now, and then the passion gets lost. And it's just nice to sort of speak to somebody who, I'm not saying anybody I've had on here hasn't got the passion for it. It's just, the way you've put yourself over with the love of wrestling. It's really nice and refreshing to hear about it. So like I said, the introduction, you are the head trainer at AllStar Wrestling. So, as a trainer, what is one piece of advice you give to somebody who's looking to start wrestling after lockdown? Is there would you say there's an age limit or a weight limit per se, or?
So yeah, my one piece of advice would be not to like be scared of like giving this a go, because like they see wrestling and they're just like, wow, I could never do that. But I wasn't like a natural born wrestler or like a natural athlete or anything like that. It was just, it took work. That's all it is. If you're willing to put the work in and you're willing to stay consistent, then there's no way that everybody can do this. If I can do this, like, and you can do this, everybody can do this. You know what I mean? So I'm nothing special. I'm not like a special athlete or anything like that. I've just been consistent, and that's all it is. You stick with something, and you keep going, and before you know it, you'll be good. And I think a lot of people, when they first start, like, they get there and they're kind of like, oh, they're kind of blown away. There's a lot to take in. It just comes over time. Like, so my advice for anybody who feels like they're struggling with the first couple of lessons that are maybe thinking about quitting is don't quit, because like some wrestlers don't get good until like the 10 years in. They don't get into the strap. So, I've always said, like, you're still learning. Like, I'm still learning now, but like you don't know half the stuff that you're going to know, like, even after 10 years of like full-time wrestling. There's just until you're 10 years in of full-time wrestling, you're still a beginner, and that's in my opinion. So yeah, just, you've got a lot of time, and just don't think about the destination, just enjoy the journey. That's what you see. A lot of people want to, they want to like get signed so bad, like when they first join a wrestling school, like, I want to go to the WWE, I want to do WWE. I've never been to the WWE, but I've had like the best life. I've had so much fun. I've had like 4 lifetimes of laughs in the last 21 years. So yeah, don't focus on the destination, just enjoy the journey.
Yeah, so I would say to like set small goals as well. That's something I say to people. You know, don't set yourself, like you said, don't think, oh, I need to go to the big leagues. You know, set yourself, you know, get your training sessions done, get on your first, you know, get your first book in, and just go from there. Otherwise, you could set yourself to be disappointed. You know, so say, you know, I'm fresh. You know, I've never wrestled in my life. I've watched it on the TV. I turn up to your school. What is the first thing you would like say to me or take me through, or what would you do?
So the first thing we do is obviously I introduce myself, get them to sign out a waiver, and then as soon as the class starts, like, we start stretching. Stretching is really important in wrestling. Speaking as somebody who's wrestled like as much as I have over the last like 2 decades, like, stretching is so important. I can't stress it enough. It's just one thing that will always, like, if you're looking for a long career in wrestling, stretching is one of the things that you need to do. So we stretch. The first thing that we do as soon as like we finish stretching is we do rolls and break falls. Because again, rolls and break falls are like 2 of the most important things in wrestling, in my opinion. A lot of people say, well, it depends on the size of the person. Like, so they'll never do a roll, but like, rolling is so important. It's not just like because you're going to do a roll in a match. It's not that at all. It's a lot of it is about body control, and and the rolls are so good at like controlling that body control, if you get me. So that brings that on, and then we go from there. Really, I'm not one of these trainers that like has like a set routine or a set route, like just something that we do like all the time. I kind of like see how I'm feeling, take a look at like how everybody's looking on the rolls and stuff, judging the class, like what level everybody's at, and obviously I've been teaching since 2006, so I can see little things that other people might not be able to see, and and I know what people need to work on. So I will just kind of make it up as I go along, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I always feel like if you go in there and it's a relaxed atmosphere and it's kind of like you can have the banter and stuff, that's the best way to learn.
Yes.
I think, like, I'm not saying anything bad about other wrestling schools, but like, I've seen footage of other wrestling schools where it's a bit like, it's like a military camp, you know what I mean? You go in there and they're having you do like all these exercises and stuff like that. And the atmosphere is kind of tense and everybody's kind of like scared to speak, you know what I mean? It's not like that at all. It's really relaxed. Although like the stretching and the rolls is exercise, I don't make anybody do like any press ups or sit ups or anything like that, because it's just, you're there to learn how to wrestle. Yeah. I'm not there as your personal trainer to show you how to train. That's up to you. That's your part of the wrestling. The look, you know what I mean? That's the thing that you need to learn on. We're there for 4 hours, and for them 4 hours, we're learning how to wrestle. And yeah, it's really enjoyable. And before lockdown, obviously, I was doing seminars as well, going to other schools, and it's just so nice. Like, I'm a really social person. Like, you never know who's going to walk through the door, and it's just nice. Like, a couple of years ago, I was just there, and we used to have this wrestling school where we used to take down the ring and put it up every session. So I'm putting the ring up this one day, and this little voice like says hi, and I turn around, and there's this girl standing there, and she says hello, like, my name's Tony, and I've moved here from Australia to train at your school. And it's like, wow, like, my mind is actually like blown that like somebody would struggle to come to my school, you know what I mean, where I'm setting up the ring. And after a couple of years, that student became Tony Storm, and look at Tony Storm, you know. So you just never know who you're going to meet or who's going to walk through your door. And I just enjoy meeting all these people that share the same passion about wrestling that I do. And it's nice to see like somebody like when they get in there for the first time and they can barely roll, and then like 10 years later, there's nothing they can't do. They're absolutely amazing, and you see them wrestling on TV or something like that. It's again really satisfying for me as a trainer.
Nice. There we go. So if anybody is interested in joining the AllStar Wrestling School, now you know. So I got two more questions left. I like to ask about this purely because I feel it's something that has hit everybody during lockdown. I don't know how you feel about it. You don't need to you don't need to answer, which is fine. Mental health. Are you happy to speak about mental health?
Of course. Yeah.
So obviously, as a wrestler yourself, and obviously as a human, how has mental health affected your real life and your wrestling life in the past?
Obviously, like, based off what I've told you so far, like, I've always been quite lucky with wrestling. Obviously, being a full-time wrestler is like a dream come true for me. And no matter where I've wrestled, like, I've wrestled in some like really small venues. I've wrestled in front of 8 people. I've never looked at it and thought I'm too good for this, or this is. I've never woke up one day and thought, today I've got to go wrestling. Oh, I wish I didn't have to go to this show today. You know, I've been doing over 250 shows every year for 2 decades, and I've just like absolutely loved every minute of it. And when people have spoken about mental health in the past, it's kind of like one of them things that I didn't really like understand, because I've had such a good life. Like, I've got 2 kids, and everything has always gone so well that I didn't really understand it, because it was just like, what do you mean? Like, life's awesome, you know what I mean? What are you talking about mental health? But it was only when wrestling got taken away and we went into lockdown and they closed the gyms where I was kind of like, wow, like, if I didn't know any better, I'd say that I was like pretty depressed right now, you know. And like I said to you before, it was a real struggle, and my way my way of dealing with that was to get drunk every day, just to numb the feelings. So I do now understand that not everybody's lives are like as good as mine, you know what I mean? And for them, life isn't awesome. I just I don't even know what to say to them people. It's just like I just always knew that wrestling would come back, and that's how I knew how I would get out of it. But everybody's different. But life's a funny thing. Like there can be just something just around the corner that can change your life completely, and it could happen like without you knowing in an instant, and it could just change everything. So all I can say to them people is just stay strong, and just whatever you're going through to cause all this isn't going to last forever. There is going to be light at the end of the tunnel, just like there is for me now. So yeah, just stay strong. Like I really do understand now when people talk about mental health, I do understand now how they are feeling, and it sucks. It really does.
No, I like it. You know, it's good that you found your light at the end of the tunnel. Like my followers on here and people who watch this will know I suffer with mental health. I have depression, I have anxiety, and wrestling was my what's the word? My release, if you will. You know, obviously being your gimmick, or that was your release. But when we couldn't wrestle anymore, got to me a little bit, and I just didn't know what to do. And this is why I started doing these podcasts, because I can bring CueBall out. I could be the gimmick for a little while, and that's my release. So I would say as well, try and find something that's going to help and release health. Give something to look forward to and try and stay positive, which is quite difficult to do. But there is always a positive to a negative, I say, and it's just trying to find that positivity. But yeah, you'll all get there. So my last question for you, Dean, is talking about the brand new wrestling game called Indie Wrestler, which you are the star of. I have seen some footage of you in. So are you excited about this game? Have you played it yourself yet?
So unfortunately, I own an iPhone.
Yeah,
it isn't out on the App Store yet. So, but I was with my friend last night, and he's got an Android, and he downloaded it, and he's obviously a wrestler too. His name is Tyson Taylor. And he was just showing me like what it's like, what you do. He actually unlocked like AllStar Wrestling on it last night, which is like level 9. And he actually wrestled me like as a man. And I was just like, my mind's so blown away, because when I was growing up, I was obsessed with wrestling games. Like it's all I ever did. Like wrestling video games were like my thing. It was like me and my friend Robbie Dynamite, like he was always like way ahead of me when it came to stuff. He had this like imported like Japanese PlayStation that he used to get all these Japanese wrestling games on. And these wrestling games were absolutely like insane. For anybody who like ever played like Touken Retsuden like on the Japanese PlayStation will understand what I'm saying, because they were just ahead of the time. There was just nothing like them. When we used to go on holiday together, like I mentioned before, we used to search out like the arcade that used to have like the wrestling arcade machine in there. And yeah, for somebody who was like obsessed with wrestling video games like I was, like to see myself now like on a video game like about wrestling is just mind blowing. When I was looking at it like that, I was just like, what is my life? You know what I mean? This is absolutely insane. So from what I've seen of it, it's like it's very detailed. Obviously, it's got so many wrestlers on there, and I can't wait to try it out myself.
Like Dean said, it's not out yet on the Apple App Store, unfortunately, because iOS are rubbish. But it is out on Android. It's free to download as well. You can play as your favorite independent wrestlers. You work your way up in the rankings. Like you said, AllStar Wrestling is level 9. I believe it goes up to level 40 from what I've seen, but I'm not accurate on that one. But if anybody watching would like to play it, I will post the description in the link below. So download it and tell them CueBall sent you. So that is the end of the Rambles. Normally I do have fan questions, but nobody wanted to ask questions for some reason, unfortunately. I know.
They've probably seen me on too many podcasts in the past, and they're just like, we've heard it all before.
Yeah. Oh, well. Oh, well, it just sucked for me, but there we go. It's okay. So before we go, is there anything you'd like to promote, plug, or just before we
no, just thanks for having me. If you want to follow me on the socials, it's at Dean Allmark for everything. It seems like Dean Allmark is like a really rare name in the world, so it's easy to find. So I'll see you there.
I was also, you got that Instagram account as well, haven't you? I can't remember. Where you do all your little.
It's obviously I came up with the move of the week when I was teaching at the wrestling school. That went for a couple of years, and for anybody who's ever seen like the move of the week, it's like I try and come up with stuff that like people have never seen before, or take something from like the early 1900s, or like Olympic wrestling, or like grappling tournaments, and like transition them to pro wrestling. So I think there's definitely over 100 on there of move of the weeks, and it's Dean Allmark Wrestling Systems there. Obviously, I've got my YouTube channel. My YouTube channel's got over like 500 matches on there, not just of mine. Like you can watch all my TNA stuff on there, my matches from Japan. But you've got like hidden gems in there, like Robbie Dynamite against Justin Thunder Liger from Croydon for AllStar Wrestling. You got like Dick Togo against James Mason from Liverpool. Just like little hidden gems that people might not know about. Dave Finlay against Danny Collins from a couple of years ago from the Legends show. You'll find all that on there. There's some really good stuff.
Nice. So we're going to give it a follow. I follow it, as you know, and I must spend half my night watching these videos like 10 times through, thinking that's amazing. Just little things, like little tweaks to certain moves. It's you never stop learning in wrestling. That's something I definitely learned, especially through the years of myself wrestling. You never stop learning.
Nothing.
So that concludes today's Rambles. Dean, thank you very much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
So yeah, this has been Dean Allmark, Extreme, Dino, whatever you call yourself. I have been the beer drinking, heavy metal listening, bald-headed brawler CueBall. Stay safe, stay positive. #, yeah.